Live from the Motor City, all the way to the Volunteer State. It's time for the Reckless Speculation Podcast, where we recklessly speculate the latest news in the world of sports. From college football to NASCAR, we've got you covered. And don't forget to stick around for the world-famous Bet Your Nuts, where we will give you your best bets to make the most money. Now sit back, grab your favorite drink of choice, and join Robbie Davis, Raj Mehta, Brandon Chain, and Tom Sloan. It's showtime.
Good evening and welcome to Easy's Playhouse. You stupid mother. Sorry, I was listening to Easy E earlier. If anybody knows, on Easy Does It, the intro song, one of the best rap albums ever. A lot of you motherfuckers weren't even born then. Sorry, dropping F-bombs, but that's Easy E for you. This is Reckless Speculation. I'm coming to you live from an embassy suite, as you can tell. I did my best by stealing a luggage cart and hanging up a background, so bear with me. It's pretty janky, which is essentially representative of USC basketball. But again, welcome. We are in the football offseason, but we're getting close. The Combine's happening. The Denver Broncos happened. And let's just get into it. Robbie Davis has a trial. He's out of town. First, let's get to Brandon Chain, who is, let's just say bourbon is for closers. He's got a construction deal, and he locked it down today, and it looks like he put other things on lock. I'm just playing with you. Chain, what's up?
What's going on, man? What's going on? I love the luggage cart makeshift background. It's perfect.
That's one thing about kids today, dude. My kid is not resourceful, and like he would just stop and stare at the wall, and I'm like, I don't give a shit if you're 9 or not, bro. But anyway, but I appreciate the love, dude. And you're trying to act sober, which I told everyone, don't do that. The ratings skyrocket otherwise. But finally, the producer extraordinaire, the man who is younger than us, but tells us what to do, rightfully so, because we're children. Mr. Tomas, Year of Michigan. Sloan, what's up?
I don't think I'm younger than Brandon. I think he's the young buck of the crew. So I am a little younger than you are, but
well,
yes,
you're just so like nice and cordial and genuine that we presume life hasn't jaded you yet.
Well, I mean, it has, but why cause a big scene? It's not worth it. So, but I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad Brandon's here, and we will power through. I guarantee it. So. And lots of good content tonight. So we've got 12 on right now. This is awesome, and thank everyone for checking in, and I hope you enjoy the show tonight.
And we are going to be fast today. That's the goal, just like I am with my never mind. Let's just jump right into it, man. Danger Russ, who in a trade, we're going to go over that in a second, was cut after signing a 5-year, 200 and what was it? I wrote it down. See, as host, I don't remember 80? My shit. $242.6 million. He was cut yesterday. Tom, what does that mean when it comes to literally the donkeys, as a Raider fan calls them, and for Russell Wilson?
Well, it means that the Walmart family, the Walton family, I should say, they have way too much money on their hands that they could eat the contract, essentially, that they're paying Russell Wilson to walk away. But I think it means that Russell Wilson's, I think he'll get signed somewhere. There is a couple teams I could see, maybe New England taking a chance. A small market. I don't see anybody that's ready to make a run taking a flyer on this guy, because I think it's safe to say the last 2 to 3 seasons we've seen enough, and we're going to get what we've gotten out of Russell Wilson. I don't think we're going to get any more, and he's well beyond his prime. So I do think there will be teams looking to sell some seats, perhaps. Other than that, I don't think the road for Russell Wilson in the NFL is very smooth at this point.
I would agree. Shane is someone who played football with passion, undersized, but is like a missile for the Winchester Wallabies or whatever the fuck you guys were. And I've seen you allegedly in fights, and you're one of those that just doesn't think it goes 110% in everything. Did Russell Wilson lose his passion to play the game? And what else happened in Denver where it just was an abomination?
Passion to play the game. That's a tough question. Looking from afar, like on TV, like we don't see all the behind the scenes, like locker room stuff. And that's where like teammates, coaches, those are the guys that are going to know if he still has a passion or not. We're not going to see that on TV. I mean, we should actually, if he's overly passionate, but to lose it, I don't know. Maybe he's gotten comfy after that contract. One of the worst, if not the worst, in the NFL, and we'll get to that later. It's terrible, though, because he had so much talent, and to fall off that quickly, there's got to be some other underlying thing going on. Like, I don't feel like he just like lost his athleticism.
No,
what I mean?
I agree. It perhaps was a change in offense. It was definitely a worse offensive line, especially when it came to passing. PFF says they're much better than that, but they're pretty good with the run. And I was at the Raider game last year when Javonte Williams got hurt. And when that was taken away, it was a different Russell Wilson. And, he's been known for balance throughout his career with, Oakland thug life. And I mean that with all due respect. I'm a Brown guy. I'm not saying anything else. No appropriation, but, Marshawn Lynch, whoever it may be, that's how the Seahawks played. And when you take that away, Tom, what does that mean for Russell? Or does it mean anything?
Well, it just says that he's the type of player that needs talent around him. And when you had, beast mode behind there, he was kind of a safety blanket. And then they had a hell of a receiver core and an offensive line. And let's not forget that defense that kept them in games. So I think the reality is he went to Denver, and Denver gave up so much in order to get him. It kind of prevented them between the draft picks they gave up and the money that they invested into him. It kind of tied their hands when it came to putting talent around him. And, he's long in the tooth. So his ability to make plays with his legs kind of, deteriorated in the last couple of years. You didn't see him willing to take off when there wasn't any plays there. So once you take that aspect out of the game, and that's the way that you've played to that point, I think you become very vanilla, very predictable. And Russell Wilson, in all intents and purposes, was just kind of a ho-hum type of quarterback, and didn't really wow you with his arm. He was one of the worst in completions, beyond, I think it was 15 yards. So his ability to beat you with his arm was never going to be an issue. It was always his athleticism, his ability to stretch plays. And when that is gone, and it has been gone
Absolutely.
for the past 2 years, then you're not going to get a whole lot out of him.
I think it's an underestimated point that defense had 4 straight years as being number 1 overall in the NFL. He had a lot of short fields, and, when the defense over and over is pounding a team, when he would improvise and, like you said, make plays, it's almost like you would watch him beat a dead horse or I don't want to undermine him because he did have a great career. He has a
Sure.
super hot wife.
And he'll be a Hall of Famer.
things.
He'll be in the Hall of Fame because he's So I mean that goes without saying. But your point on the defense is I agree 100%. That secondary was just ridiculous, and when you're
Legion of Boom,
when you're getting those turnovers and it's a short field, I mean any offense is going to have success.
Now let me go over this real quick. What did Seattle get? Basically, out of their draft, what it looked like. They got Charles Cross out of Ole Miss, I believe, the offensive lineman. They got the best cover corner as a rookie, Devin Witherspoon, who wasn't even finishing in the top 3 in Defensive Rookie of the Year, but that's a sack contest. He was easily the best rookie DB. Pick 6, 3 sacks, 9 TOLs, and 16 passes defended. Just insane, They also got, we know the players, Fant Locke and Shelby Harris. Boye Mafe, who as a linebacker this year had 52 tackles, 9 sacks coming off that edge. And that could have been with Seattle. Derek Hall, Tyreek Smith. They went big on the defensive line. I think, do they have more first-round picks coming? I don't remember. But Denver just got absolutely destroyed. Not to mention, they got a 4th-rounder from Iowa or Iowa State, Uwazurike, who was suspended, one of 7 players suspended for gambling, 32 games on the Broncos, including on a game he played in, which people think, oh, he's betting on himself. Tom, what's the big issue when you bet on your own self when you're playing in a football game? What could happen?
You can expose yourself. You
remember the movie Blue Chips? You can point shave. I mean, dude could fall down and on a sweep or lose contain. It's the dumbest shit ever. He's suspended. Interesting of note, Iowa State quarterback Hunter Deckers, who was in line to follow up Brock Purdy, also suspended. 7 dudes in Iowa. Shane, after the dumbest shit I thought I'd seen for a guy who was getting massages from Thai hookers, excuse that, and God knows what else, out of football, he gets from the Cleveland Browns a $63 million all guaranteed contract. Did the Broncos say, hold my beer? Because I didn't think anybody else would fuck up that hard.
Hey, yeah, I totally agree, dude. It's got to be Russell Wilson deal. It's the worst deal ever. It's a close second with Deshaun. And, I don't know if it's just I've been watching the Browns screw it up so many times for so many years that it's just like, oh, well, that's cute. You kind of just feel bad for him. And you're like, well, it's a good try. You get up, buddy. You can do it next time. Kind of that deal. Or what's going on with the Browns? But they're still, Russell Wilson, he was clearly not what he was when he won the Super Bowl.
So real quick, the Texans. Sorry to cut you off, Brandon.
No, that's exactly what we're going to next. What they get.
The Texans so far have received Kenyon Green. He's a guard. Will Anderson Jr. So he got that second first-round pick in the top 5 last year. They got
Defensive Player of the Year.
Yep. Rookie. And they also got Tank Dell, who was the lights-out receiver up until he got injured. He was C.J. Stroud's kind of go-to guy. So, and this year they have a 24. So this year they have a first round and a 5th round pick in this year's draft. So, I mean, it's neck and neck for worst trade deals. But it just goes to show you there's a lot of bad GMs in the NFL.
I don't know how either has their job, but they turned other deals, with the Eagles. They got John Mechie from Alabama. We all talked about, we were high on him. Christian Harris, Damian Pierce, who was their leading running back.
Right.
And Thomas Booker, and that's just these smart teams. Houston was already on the rise, and people forget, like you said, they got another first, a fourth, and another fourth or third, whatever it is. If I am the Tennessee Titans and the other people in that division, I am scared shitless.
Oh, for sure.
Real quick, can you guys tell me, and I can give you some names of unrestricted free agents next year, but who's going to be re-signed and who is going to be possibly traded? And the main three involve, of course, Tom's team, and we can start with him. What do you think is going to happen with Jared Goff, who I understand is an unrestricted free agent next year?
Yeah, this is the last year of his deal. I don't think there's any question he's going to get an extension. There's no way. He's absolutely adored in this city. Actually, last week at the Pizza Palace, or as I like to call it, the Pizza Palace, Little Caesars Arena, they were chanting Jared Goff. I mean, we're talking, 2 months removed, from the last time he took a snap. They're still chanting his name. We went to a concert about 3 weeks ago. They were chanting Jared Goff at a concert. And so there's no doubt that he'll be here 4 years, which begs me to think that they don't have a lot of faith in Hendon Hooker. And as much was said by Dan Campbell at the Combine. So we'll see. But you've got a top 5 quarterback who wants to be here, who's proven he's a proven winner. He's got them 2 playoff wins. So there's no way he is not in Detroit for the rest of his career.
Brandon, I'm going to give you some names, and you tell me who is the most likely to be traded. It's probably obvious, and that's another question, but unrestricted free agent quarterbacks next year. Jordan Love, Josh Allen, Jared Goff, and Dak Prescott. I think the other ones, it's safe to say, are going to be re-signed. What do you think? Do you think Dak stays, or do you think he's dealt? I mean, if those guys can get the deals they got, Jerry could probably fleece somebody. What do you think happens with Dak? Oh, Trevor Lawrence is also an unrestricted free agent. Sunshine from Remember the Titans.
Man, if it was me, I would trade Dak for sure, but that's a tough one. I don't know if Jerry's going to let go. Like he just has trouble. Like
he's got
not
a lot
having
of pride.
control.
Right,
loyalty.
exactly.
Too much loyalty.
Hey, and
Yeah,
I hate to say this, but I mean, what the fuck? Sorry. This is what happens when you're working off your computer.
Hey, now I want some Burger King.
Exactly. By the way, if you think advertising doesn't work, my kid sings that song when it comes on, and it's another reason to be like, I'm calling Maury. You are not mine. Trevor Lawrence hasn't exactly set the world on fire, and we've made a lot of excuses for him, and especially in big moments. I have not seen that dude. Are you going to yak, Chain? Was that a sneeze?
I'm coughing, so I'm trying not to cough.
We'll get some
more.
more.
Be respectful. Come on.
Listen to me. I'm playing BK in the background. We're going to get sued. But I mean,
no doubt.
Lawrence is, number 1 pick overall, supposed to be the next Peyton. Far from it. So the class next year, it could be a bidding war. These are unrestricted free agents, but they can sign extensions prior. So it's going to be very interesting. My last question on here, we have 3 teams that, 2 of them are going in an opposite direction. But is there a free agent that you, Tom, really want Detroit to sign? And same with you, Chain, on the Titans. And then who's somebody that you're like, hell no? Like, we know Cousins is going to get a high price. But, as a Raider fan, I would take Chris Jones. It's going to be a lot of money, but I would take him it takes him from Kansas City as well, but he's going to get overpaid. Who do you want? Who do you want to stay away from because of the money and other reasons?
Well, I think obviously, the easy answer, the short answer is L'Jarius Sneed, because he will shore up that secondary almost instantaneously. They're bringing back Emmanuel Mosley on a 1-year deal. He took 2 snaps with the Lions last year. Um, Knee injury, but promise. I think he had more promise than C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who they're going to let walk, rightfully so. So I think you plug him in there with Melifonwu, with Brian Branch, that you have back there with Kirby Joseph in that secondary. I think that's a very athletic secondary that can get after the receivers to be able to, kind of keep that over the top from happening. Chris Jones, he could be a bit of a risk. I think you're right. He's going to get overpaid. He's a little bit older. Skill-wise, he still has it. But I like Metabuke out of Baltimore.
I think took him out because I don't know how they let him go.
I think he's got more. I think he's got more upside. He's younger. What do you have? 11 and a half sacks last season, and
I think so.
And you put him next to Aiden Hutchinson, next to Aleem McNeil, who was almost a gem of the 21 draft, if not for Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Lions. So I think that would shore up that defensive front big time. But Sneed and Metabuike, I think those are 2 players that, if they signed, it would be happy times around here.
The young Bears corner, Jalen Johnson, Antoine Winfield Jr. out of Tampa. Basically, any breathing secondary guy is somebody you want.
I think Winfield got a little bit exposed last year. He didn't have the year he had previously. So he's got football in his genes with his dad, although he did go to Ohio State. But I think he still has a lot of life left in him, and I'd be shocked if Tampa lets him walk, especially seeing that they just re-signed Mike Evans. So, but as far as people I don't want Steph Gilmore. I think he's too old. The Lions still have his brother on the roster, Stephen Gilmore, which shocks me of a Stephon and a Stephen. But nonetheless, and I want nothing to do with Marquise Brown. I think he's a head case. I think he's a receiver that has questionable hands. In moments that he needed to shine, he certainly didn't. Both in Arizona. Character. I think he's a player that doesn't kind of fit the gritty mold that they have here in Detroit.
Another great GM. In Baltimore, they traded Marquise Brown, who at the time people were like, he's the only serviceable guy, and a 3rd-round pick for a 2022 first. Marquise Brown at Oklahoma was overrated. At USC, we got Mario Williams, a similar player, 5-star, that was overrated. I'm not saying anything about Oklahoma except for the fact their fans are dicks.
He's fast. I mean, you give him that.
Yeah.
He's got speed, but what are you going to use that speed if he can't catch the football? And that's a big problem.
Exactly. Chain had to step away, but if you're the Titans, do you think they go OL? We know that, and this is a great receiver class with T. Higgins, my man, USC Trojan, Michael Pittman. I'm trying to think who else here. Mike Evans is gone. When it comes to offensive line, a little bit older in the tooth, former USC Trojan and probably Hall of Famer Tyron Smith, who's had injury issues. Who's another OL? Trying to think of. I mean, what do you think, knowing the Tennessee Titans and their whole? Oh, T. Higgins. T. Higgins would be he's going to get paid, but
yeah.
What do you think?
Well, knowing how Tennessee's been the last couple of years, it's been a train wreck. And I think Brandon and Robbie would agree with that. What they need to do, they need to go heavy offensive line. They've got Will Levis back there. He showed some flashes of ability, but also he showed flashes as to why, he slipped to the second round. But they have to go offensive line. they got the guy out of Northwestern last year in the first round,
Skronsky,
which was a really good pick. And around here, 3 years ago, set the table when we drafted Penei Sewell. So that's where it starts. It starts and ends in the trenches. And if you're building a football team, you have to follow that mold, because the most important person on the field is the quarterback. And if you're not going to protect your quarterback, you're not going to have success in this league. It's a proven fact. So both free agency and the draft, you have to go offensive line. But fortunately, Tennessee's not a favorable landing spot in free agency, in my opinion, although there aren't many cities in the country better than Nashville. I'll be there in 2 weeks. But as far as a football kind of culture goes, I don't think there's a lot of players out there that say, yeah, you know what, Tennessee's on the top of my list. So I think their best attack is to hit it on the draft, and you got a really good one out of Notre Dame and Joe Alt that I think Tennessee would be smart to do everything in their power to try and go after.
I agree. Early pick, though, and if Will Levis and Malik Willis are not the answer, I've said for years, especially with Rob and Chain and every other Titans ding-dong, that a former receiver with one decent year, maybe two at South Carolina and Tannehill, is not the answer. Oh, we can win with him. We can win with him. He showed that you're going to lose with him more often, especially in big moments.
Yeah.
And with the best running back in the league for 10 straight years.
And that just goes to show you that their lack of an offensive line kind of made Derrick Henry non-existent in this season. Sure, he had a couple big games, but there's only so much you can do. He's been in the league 6-7 years, and you need offensive help. You need line help. You need holes. Sure, he's going to break through, but man, at that age, you need a little bit more help, and Tennessee just couldn't provide that.
Just to give some context I agree, start in the trenches, all the great coaches do. They started 2 undrafted free agents, and then a guy in Andre Dillard from Washington State that Philly gave up on in 3 years, and then Skronsky and Raduns out of North Dakota State. Corey Levin's a backup for multiple positions. He was a 6th-rounder. They suck. Also, we talked about receiver. It was the biggest, dumbest shit ever. And don't get Chain or Robbie started on trading
A.J. Brown.
A.J. Brown, the peak of his career, without telling anyone. They turned around and drafted Treylon Burks, an overrated receiver, in my opinion, from Arkansas. Just thinking, hey, we got it. No plug, no problem. And, it's aside from recent LSU guys, it's hard to make a difference at receiver. As for the Raiders, my shitty-ass team, the greatest moment in reckless speculation history, according to Randall, was live drafting and watching them select Alex Leatherwood at 17. I just lost my mind, and I think he's out of football, so that was nice. The trenches, they got Tyree Wilson last year, number 7 from Texas Tech. And we're going to lead into this. A combine monster who sucked last year, didn't do shit. They need to stop the run, especially in that division. So you got, Christian Wilkins, they've been tied to at edges. We're going to talk about horrible draft picks. The Raiders got Farrell at 4, Brian Burns, free agent, Josh Allen from Jacksonville, free agents that went later.
Burns just got the tag today from Carolina. So,
fuck.
Yeah.
Excuse my language.
Yep.
So I probably want, as a Raider fan, there's just spots all over, but first I want the Fields trade, but I would go with Wilkins, a leader in the middle of the defense, over Chris Jones. You're right, and there's just better, younger talent there. But I talked about Tyree Wilson, who was good at Texas Tech, but he measured like 38 feet, like a pterodactyl in arm length at the combine. The combine's going on right now, and I've always had a pet peeve with guys who had 4 years to prove themselves but then suddenly certain measurables pop out and, oh, we'll take that guy. Case in point, we're going to talk about worst first rounders ever as a Raider. Jamarcus Russell, Darius Hayward-Bay, who ran a 4.3 and was shit at Maryland. Al Davis took him at number 7. I could go on and on. Michael Huff from Texas, out of the league quick. And then Farrell, it's just nonstop.
Or how about the receiver that's sitting in prison?
Ruggs, who just a tragic thing.
Yep.
Poor young lady and her dog, which obviously human life takes precedence. But you and I, like a dog burning, and they burned alive. You have to do character studies, and there's really another huge fear about playing in Las Vegas. And sometimes it just appears.
Temptation.
You come from Tuscaloosa, you know. It's just a different ball game. But and you better not say Mike Williams, you son of a bitch. That wasn't his fault. He had to sit out a year, and he would have played another year. He was dominant. But what's the first round or some of the worst picks Detroit Lions have made in recent memory? Because you're like me, dude. With how much time you got, buddy?
Well, I mean, prior to the new regime, almost every first-round pick was a disaster. I'll go way back. I'll go back to 1990. Okay, this is way back.
Give me the position because I was alive. And
quarterback.
It wasn't Scott Mitchell. No. First rounder. You're gonna
first round Heisman Trophy winner. The Houston Cougars.
David. No, they didn't get what's his name? Houston Cougars. Oh shit.
He is now an ESPN college football analyst.
Oh God, why am I blanking? You're gonna say his name, and I know who he is.
Andre Ware.
Andre Ware.
They drafted Pete. They drafted Barry.
Hey, easy on the runner-up to the Heisman Trophy in 1988. Roger Pete.
That's all right. He did okay with the Lions, and then they go Andre Ware. Just could never find his feet. The old run and gun in Houston that he ran. He comes to Detroit where they did the run and shoot. Just never worked. It was a complete disaster. He only played a handful of games, only started a handful of games for the Lions. So
14 games in his career, he was 3-3, 5 TDs, 8 picks, 51% completion percentage, which same as Jamarcus, who liked the purple drink, but he had Barry Sanders. What the fuck are you doing?
That just goes to show you the college game and the NFL game do not always go hand in hand. And as much as Derek, I just saw an interview with Derrick Henry, and they asked him, is there a big difference between the college game and the NFL game? And he almost fell out of his chair. He's like, it's not even close. He goes, the SEC, was about as close as you would come to an NFL team, but not even close. But so Andre Ware, the local kid,
Charlie Ward won it 2 years later, and no career in the NFL.
Played basketball. Yeah, he played for the Knicks.
Different league back then, but sorry, keep going.
So then we draft the local kid in Charles Rogers, who had all the tools, and just could never put it together. He got broke his collarbone, I think, week 2 of his rookie year at Denver. He was having a good game. I think he had 6 receptions up to that point, and he just never got back. And the aforementioned Mike Williams, who had so much promise, who decided to take a chance in the Maurice Clarett, hey, I'm going to sue the NFL and try and go. And unfortunately, both of those players are now deceased. So, which is very ironic in its own right.
USC's Charles Rogers.
Yeah. So it's a shame, but I mean, that's just recent memory. I mean, the Lions organization prior to Sheila taking over was an absolute dumpster fire, embarrassment to say you were a Lions fan. But yet they put 81,000 at the Silverdome every single game, and because that's just how crazy lunatic loyal us Lions fans are. But yeah, so pretty much anybody that was drafted, not named Calvin Johnson and Barry Sanders prior to the Brad Holmes regime was pretty much a waste of time.
And in true Lions fashion, they both retired at their peak, which is why so many of us are pulling for Jared Goff and for Detroit.
And if you have not watched Bye Bye Barry on Amazon Prime, do yourself a favor. He explains why he retired and how he did it. It's pretty remarkable. It's a great story. And as somebody growing up in that era, it took me back. I remember each game that they highlighted. It was pretty cool. I was sitting there watching with Christina, and I'm like, I remember this play. Here's what happens. And she's looking at me like, you're crazy. You're weird. Why do you remember that? I don't know. I remember sports moments, but I can't remember what I did 4 hours ago. So I guess that's the life we live.
I sent you guys that Kobe Bryant video clips, which I have a million of them, and I tear up about the only thing I do tear up on.
Yeah.
But that was to Lil Uzi Vert's Kobe, and it's just an amazing highlight clip. And I remember every single one of those plays.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's kind of the way it goes when you have that passion and loyalty. Plus, didn't have a lot of, well, we did in the Lakers, but you didn't have a lot of great plays aside from the ones those two guys made. I can tell you confidently, Robbie texted Shane. I think it's single parenting after, again, bourbon is for closers. So he's not a puker. Like in the movie Kingpin, I don't puke when I drink. I puke when I don't.
And can I acknowledge the 20 people that are on live right now and how much we appreciate you guys taking some time out of your night watching us tonight, and please go like the show, follow us on socials. It really does us a whole lot of good. It gets our word out there a little bit further than we normally would. So go ahead and hit that like button. We really appreciate you taking some time tonight.
Yeah, we go live for those that don't know, and then Tom basically sets the recordings up. So we get a lot of views and traffic and interaction, but when people are live, man, we appreciate it. A lot of Titans fans here. Chain stepped away. I'm pretty sure Robbie, who has told me before, their worst pick ever was in 2011, a first-round quarterback. Can you name him at 8th overall from the Pac-10 back then? The University of Washington had one good season.
Oh, is he still in the? He's not still in the league, is he?
No, because I confuse him with Jake Browning, who also was a Washington Husky, I believe.
You got me.
It is Jake Locker.
Jake Locker.
Jake Locker was, as a Pac-12 guy, he was kind of a dual threat, one good year in my opinion, but he just wasn't a leader. He played in 23 games, 57% completion rate, almost as many like 1-to-1 picks to TDs. Some others, Isaiah Wilson, who's just been a shit show in 2020. That was 29th overall, so I'll give him that. Some people name Pac-Man Jones. I loved Pac-Man, but yeah,
no, he had a nice career once he went to Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, exactly. They let him go in Titans GM fashion. Chance Warmack, the guard in 2013. Anyone else I see? That's a good one. I saw one come across Andre Wolford, the corner in 2003. Pretty shitty career as well. So that's the Tennessee Titans, not quite as bad as our teams, but they are starting to catch up. There's no issue about that one. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Other than former USC Trojan 4th round pick, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's the easy answer.
Mm-hmm.
What is the best draft value pick the Lions have made, maybe fourth round or later. And if you were going to say Amon-Ra, I know you're an encyclopedia. I fully believed you have some things ready to go.
He was my number one, even though you did put that in the notes. Other than Amon-Ra, unquestionably, when they made that pick, I seen him play, and there's certain players that you look at and you just know they've got it. He had it, and I remember when we were rolling in the Easy Speak podcast, Rich Jasper and I, after that draft, I said, "You watch out. The steal of this draft is right here with Amon-Ra St. Brown, undoubtedly, and he's going to get paid for it. They're negotiating a deal. He's going to be looking at 25 to 28 million. He's going to be a Lion for life, no question. He wants to be here. So, but with that being said,
worth every penny. Also,
I think that same draft, and I mentioned his name earlier, third round out of NC State, who could have gone pro in baseball, Aleem McNeil. He cut weight. He was an enforcer last year. He dropped about 15 pounds in the offseason, and he was a different player. Unfortunately, he got hurt in like week 6, and he missed a few weeks, but came back, and he took right off where he left off. So I think there's a player to look at. And I'll give you another name. And this was a first-round pick, and it caused so much commotion in last year's draft, so much heat. Jahmyr Gibbs, when they called for Jahmyr Gibbs, you could hear the air in Ford Field go out. You could almost feel people around the country like, are you serious, Jahmyr Gibbs? I like to think that Brad Holmes is a top 2 GM in the NFL, and he's proven it.
Hell yeah.
He saw so much in his ability with what he had and what this team needed. Going after a running back is reckless. In a little notch to our show, Reckless Speculation, that's a reckless move. They went after him, and he proved why they went after him. He was durable, and he was very, very effective in that offense, and he proved to be just one of the best picks that of all they had in last year's draft, which was unbelievable. So I think you look at that, and then in the same 21 draft, James Houston out of Jackson State, seventh round pick. I think he played 9 games in 2022. He had 8 sacks. So there's a guy who unfortunately blew out his knee on special teams in week 2. So he missed most of the season, but the ability to see talent beyond the name and look at the abilities and to be able to know what this team needs and the skill set that they look for and kind of that mental fortitude that they look for in the Lions. And that's why in Brad Holmes, I trust, and I think the consensus of most Lions fans are, you know what, they've got the 28th pick, and he's going to get everything he can out of it. And but yeah, I mean, the ability to evaluate talent in the later rounds has been kind of his call so far as his tenure in Detroit.
I've gotten a lot of texts about the Tennessee Titans, and I appreciate it with Robbie out and Shane puking his guts out. I don't know. For the deal he closed, he can do whatever the fuck he wants.
He's burping up Blanton's.
Yeah, dude, that guy rolls hard. The suggestions I got for the Titans, and it was value picks for those of you that said McNair, obviously. I try to say 4th round or later, but Kevin Byard was a third round pick out of MTSU, Middle Tennessee State.
Who is now available?
Yeah, it was only 2016. The play is kind of dipped, but he was an all-pro. Another one is Jarrell Casey, former USC Trojan, was a 3rd rounder who had a hell of a career. This is 2011. I believe the Los Alamitos Griffin, for those of you in Orange County. Stephen Tulloch, round 4. And
former Lion.
I'm not going to put Chris Johnson there because he's 1st rounder. And the ultimate, I got a bunch of texts about this guy, the Music City Miracle, an integral part, the tight end, Frank Wycheck.
He was offsides.
6th round pick. Hey, it was
I
the
know,
Bills.
I know,
It wasn't.
I know Chain's watching. No, he wasn't. Just like JT was short.
And so was
I digress.
But no, oh yeah, don't get the Titans fans started about some of that. But yeah, he was a 6th round pick who was a huge locker room guy who just kind of at a time when they were brand new really helped to set the identity, him and McNair, of the Titans and no longer the Houston Oilers.
Rest in peace too.
He passed away at, I believe, 52.
Yeah.
Which was very sad. As for me, oh, by the way, you talked about Amon-Ra and being a steal. Again, ironically enough, and I know I always say this because at USC we live in the past, Talanoa Hufanga, 5th round, who was just a total ball hawk. Reminded me, Polynesian dude, didn't quite have the hair of Polamalu. He was an all-pro as a rookie his first year. And then, of course, Mr. Irrelevant, same year, Brock Purdy. So there was a lot of value in that draft.
Mm-hmm.
As for Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Algier had a great year that year. Kind of goes back to ETN being drafted by Jacksonville after James Robinson had a crazy year. But it's a different NFL, and these are dual-purpose backs that are lightning quick, that defenses just can't prepare for, that you've got to bring somebody up. It's the footwork. Gibbs is, Willie Gault, famous Chicago Bear and Raider, used to do ballet for sideline catches. And these are these types of guys.
Yep.
And they add a whole dimension and change the defense where you've got a game plan around these dudes. So at the time, I was like, what the fuck? They have so many other holes. Well, guess who was right? Brad Holmes. And guess who was wrong? The rest of the world.
The field, yeah.
As a Raider fan, there's only one I can think of. Kind of back in the old days, they had some, but and this guy said he was playing baseball, and Al Davis did something smart for once, and he drafted the rights to the Heisman Trophy winner from Auburn, Bo Jackson. That was a 4th round pick who, when he came to football, that was by far the smartest thing Al ever did. As a Raider fan, him and Marcus Allen, anybody that played, I saw a text right there coming across because I'm on my phone. Tecmo Bowl. Up in A was Bo. Up in B was Marcus. Bo was
unstoppable.
Run back to your own goal line and then run 100 yards for a touchdown. But yeah, and I was at that Bengals playoff game at home in the LA Coliseum, and it looked fairly innocuous. And at the time, medically speaking, the hip, that was the last time he played football.
Yep.
And like the Detroit Lions, the Raiders that's the Raiders story.
Yep.
As I said, for worst picks, I just said name them. I said 18 of them. Finally, how many quarterbacks are going to be drafted in the 1st round? I'm probably asking the wrong guy because we know who number 4 is, and I'd love to have him. But do you think there'll be 4 quarterbacks, or do you think one of them's going to slip? And who are they?
Well, I mean, obviously, Caleb's going to go number 1. I think that there's no question on that. Drake May, Jaden Daniels, JJ. And it's tough. I mean, I think Bo Nix could go in the 1st round. I don't think he's 1st round talent, if you want my honest opinion.
No, he's just Captain Checkdown, man.
He's
Franklin and everybody else would go.
He's another version of like Drew Lock, or just your prototypical pocket passer. So he benefited from having the best receiver in college football with Rome Odunze at his disposal. Yeah, I said it. The best receiver in college football.
I agree, man. He was dominant.
So he had that luxury of no, I'm sorry, that's Michael Penix. That's my fault, Michael Penix. But Bo Nix had a hell of a tight end, and he had some receivers that made him look good, their speed, their ability. So obviously he kind of fumbled at Auburn, and he
I know
goes
who
to
you meant.
Oregon. He goes to Oregon, and he wins. But I just don't think he's first round talent. But and I know I sound like a homer, but everything I'm hearing out of the combine is JJ's flying up the charts. I'm hearing top 5. I'm seeing he's going to go to Denver, and that makes sense to me because they just cut, as we said earlier, they just cut Russell Wilson. So
Pray that
why
doesn't
not
happen for JJ's sake.
Yeah, I know, but he is in a quarterback friendly coach in Sean Payton. I think that could be a bonus for him. But he's a winner. He's only lost one college football game in his career. I think that bodes well with him. Drake May reminds me of Josh Allen. He's got athleticism beyond, and he's got an arm. His arm strength is second to none. Jaden Daniels, I think he's a typical athletic quarterback. I think he's a Lamar Jackson kind of prototype. I don't think he's going to wow you with his arm strength or his ability, his efficiency with his throwing, but his ability to extend the plate. That's today's NFL for the most part. But I really am concerned with Caleb Williams, and I know you love the kid. His generation, talent-wise, unbelievable talent. I question up here, and his not wanting to.
Why? Let me ask you why.
Because he's doing everything off script. It seems I'm not throwing. I'm not doing medicals. I just think he's making a name for himself, and not in a positive light. And he seemed to have regressed. I think you and I can agree when we watched him play at Notre Dame. That was an atrocious.
That was their worst game ever.
Yeah, but talent aside, I think he's great. I just question where his head's at, and he's going to go to the Bears. Okay, it's cold, it's windy. They're going to lose a lot of games. So how is that going to affect a young kid? They lost at USC last year, and it seemed to affect them a little bit. So when you're coming into the NFL, I think he's got a bit of a reputation, and I think there's going to be a target on his back. And talent, like I said, he's got it. He's got talent abound. But when you're put in a situation that, you know what, your back's against the wall, Chicago's not an easy place to play. The fans are tough. And how is he going to be able to handle that? That is the big question mark. So, I know you have high opinions of him, and I agree. I think he's great. But there's a lot of intangibles that are outside the game of football that come into play, especially in a young man's mind. And he's got that money. He's got that money already. So it's not financially driven. So we'll see. We'll see, because he's going to be tested, because the NFC North could be really good this year.
Permit me to counter on your relevant points, and I
absolutely
respect your opinion. He is from Washington, D.C., and his stats at Gonzaga in D.C. were off the charts. He is built to be a quarterback. He, again, would start working out. They called it the Breakfast Club. I've said it many times, 5 a.m., just on his own will and decision. And his dad was like, of course, and a few others joined that ended up doing very well. The USC offensive line was just shit, total trash. So, yeah, he did have to improvise quite a bit, but still those plays that he made were amazing. When he did drop back, he wasn't captain check down. He did well. And don't forget, at Oklahoma, he was in the pocket a hell of a lot more.
Yeah.
Like Marvin Mims and other receivers, 21 TDs, 4 picks. He held on to the ball a lot more, and he just came out and rescued them that game, and he was a very different player. 93 TDs to 14 picks. Drake May, you're looking at 62 TDs and 16 picks in a shorter amount of time. I personally think May is overrated. I think he's a cannon, and people love that. You can't force the ball in there in the NFL. He has made questionable decisions, questionable throws.
Hence my comparison to Josh Allen.
Exactly. And no, I just can't say it enough. His mindset is completely there. He's a leader in terms of Caleb. He goes to the Heisman Trophy winner, and he brings his 5 offensive linemen. He didn't have to follow Lincoln Riley, and he changed the course of that program. It would have been very easy to stay at Oklahoma and maybe win a title. So when I see the total package, rushing, not receiving, well, he did actually catch a pass for 15 yards this past year, but I think he is by far and away the best quarterback in the draft. My boy Chris Norris and his dad Deacon Don, rest in peace, are Redskins fans, or WFT or whatever, Commanders.
Not for long. Not Commanders for long.
Yep. Oh, are they changing it again, or what are they doing?
The owner put a request in to change the name, and that was one of the caveats of the purchase, that they would have the ability to change the name, because there are 2 major Native American groups that are outraged that they changed the name. So I expect it to be the Redskins once again, starting in 2025.
I like WFT. I mean, despite Bitcoin and shit, I thought that was pretty strong. I'm going to give you a trip. So I asked Norris, who would you rather have, Jaden Daniels or Drake May? And it was tough for him. Now, Norris does not present a racial bias. He's an African-American dude, but he went to a white fraternity like me. That's where we met. Just kidding. So, well, that part's true, but it was tough for him. When it comes to a drop back passer, the last one they had for 3 years he's a free agent this year.
Oh.
Cousins was the last one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Prior to that, and listen to these names: Sam Howell, North Carolina, had beat out May, I believe, in 2021. Heineke, also Fitzmagic, Wentz, Garrett Gilbert, Alex Smith, Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace, Case Keenum, Cousins for 3 years, RG3 for 3 years, McNabb or Rex Grossman.
Rex Grossi.
Did he win a Heisman?
Went to a Super Bowl. No, I don't think so. Went to the Super Bowl with the Bears.
Oh, my God. Oh, yeah, that's right. To the Colts, they lost. McNabb, Jason Campbell from Auburn, who went to the Raiders. Mark Brunell for 3 years, Washington.
Quarterback coach of the Lions.
There you go. That's what we bring you, folks. Everything you need to know about historical, especially if you're from Detroit, Oakland, LA, or Tennessee, which is a huge portion of our audience. By the way, I think Frank Wycheck was from Chattanooga.
Yes, he was. I remember seeing that. Yep.
There you go. Along with Usher and Sam Jackson, a few others. So, boom. Yeah, dude. Sam Jackson went to the school my kid goes to, so we got that going for us, which is nice. How about that? Caddyshack fans. But, it's Daniels I watched at Arizona State. Great freshman year, sophomore year came back to earth. He went to LSU, where you have about the best skill position around, probably arguably a better offensive line than Bama, and probably neck and neck with Georgia. And the receivers are just amazing. So it's hard to tell with him. And again, with May, I'm not sure what route they're going to go. Sam Howell is kind of a clone, a lesser clone to Drake.
He's a gunslinger. There's no question about that.
And that does not work. And I think, they're going to go with Daniels. I think it'll be 4, but Michael Penix has been shooting up draft boards. Combine, Senior Bowl. We hate his delivery. I do. It's kind of like a shot put from like a shoulder, and also had the best receiving core in the country. With Adunze, Jalen Polk, and these
boys behind me made him look silly, but
that was the best secondary in the country. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. I think there'll be 4. There's talk of the Raiders getting McCarthy, If he falls there, I personally would rather have a little bit more seasoned guy because Devontae is probably, fed up to it. But I think he's going to be a great pro and not just a game manager. He's got the same approach that Caleb Williams does, and that's off the field. A meditation yoga guy, just a different dude, especially upstairs, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But moving on, we have College Hoops Championship Week coming up. Last year, for those of you in Chattanooga, Jean-Baptiste hit that half quarter to send the Mocs into the tournament. For everyone that remembers, to me, that's the beauty of the tournament. I'm taking the SEC out of it because even though the Tennessee Vols, who, for those who don't know, I'm not a fan of the football program, mainly because of the fans, but I love Barnes, and I love watching that team play. So the SEC I'm taking out. Is there another conference tournament that you are looking forward to?
Well, normally I would say the Big Ten, but the Big Ten's been down. The Big Ten, some would say the Big Ten is the SEC of college basketball, and normally they are. But really, outside of Purdue and Illinois, you're hard pressed to find tournament caliber teams. But naturally, that's what's going to be on in my backyard. So the frustrations for me is what's going on in Ann Arbor with Juwan Howard. He has lost complete control of that basketball program. Yet Ward Manuel loves the guy, and the consensus is he'll be back. So that's kind of taken a lot of the zing out of college basketball around here. Obviously, it's tournament time coming down the road with Izzo. He finds ways to get his teams prepared, but I'll put the SEC in that mix. I think the SEC is becoming as competitive at basketball as they are in college football. So you've got Tennessee, you've got Alabama, who, what a game that was the other night. We were going to Talladega next month with Robbie and his buddy Barry. So we had a little text thread going back and forth. Barry, a native from Alabama, was giving Robbie a little shit to start the game, but ate crow afterwards and acknowledged it. But that was a hell of a game. You got Florida, you got Kentucky, so there's a lot of good basketball.
South Carolina came out of nowhere.
Yeah, didn't they finish the season undefeated or something like that? But
in girls ball, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Not
just
men's.
It's a competitive league, and I think they're going to be kind of the force moving forward into the tournament, which I think the majority of people don't really get following college basketball until tournament time, myself included. So, especially when I don't have a horse in the fight, since Michigan was eliminated when did the season start? Yeah, they were done back then.
Didn't Juwan Howard miss 5 games for some reason that I don't remember why? But
he had a heart condition, so he had a heart procedure done in the off season.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
they did pretty well. They did well when he wasn't there. He came back, and I think they've got 11 wins. They're as bad as the Pistons. So, it's dire times in Ann Arbor in the basketball program, especially after the football program wins a national championship. But go Michigan softball. Go Michigan softball.
I love it. That's
shout out to Mike Valamont. His daughter plays catcher and first base on Michigan. His other daughter plays at Central Michigan. Fire up Chip. So I'm watching both of those teams. So give me something to root for.
And that's the type of information, useless information, but loyal and loving that I bring definitely. But Tom as well, you can only find here on Reckless Speculation, because generally it is reckless to basically put money on a horse in women's softball. That was a horrible analogy. No misogyny intended. As for the Big Ten, I'm calling it. I think it'll be Purdue, and I like Nebraska. Nebraska's been playing great, and I know some people like the Darlings from Columbus with their new coach. They're 3-1. That's a big ass bracket. And Michigan, by the way, did they win the Big Ten last year, or no?
No, I don't think so.
Well, they were a hell of a team with 2 or 3 first rounders, and they're 3-16 this year, including Tennessee transfer Oliver Kamwa, and I think he would have been great on Tennessee, and he must have gotten hurt, I think, because he started out great. As for me, the Big 12 is going to be insane. You've got the number 1 Houston Cougars. Iowa State is kind of coming out of nowhere, but I think we all love Kansas. BYU showed out, beating a lot of teams, 9-7, 21-8, quad 1. You still got TCU, Texas. Oklahoma was ranked as high as 10th in the country. Kansas State, they had a good start to the season, 17-13. But yeah, Houston and Kansas is what we're all expecting, and that'll be amazing. The other one I love is the A-10. And you've got the 25th ranked Dayton Flyers and Holmes, Deron Holmes, who's just amazing. They're 13-4. VCU's right behind them. But then you got Sister Whatever in Loyola Chicago.
Robbie loves her, by the way. Sister Jean. He's a big fan. He's a big fan of Sister Jean.
They 14-3 and I believe it's unfair. Like, why can't we bring the Pope to sit on the sideline for other teams? They're 14-3 in the conference, 22-8, and then the Richmond Spiders are 15-2, 23-7. One thing about that conference is those 3 teams at home, the combined record is 43-3 at home.
Wow.
There's going to be a neutral court, and road 7-4, 7-4, 6-5. So that's going to be very interesting. Any other suggestions, let us know. People ask me about the Pac. It's Arizona's. It'd be great to see Washington State and Kyle Smith, who's just an amazing coach. They were ranked. They beat Arizona, I believe, twice. And I won money on that last one because it was like a 14.5-point spread. I did not take the money line, and Washington State beat them in Tucson. Another great one, Missouri Valley. Larry Bird's Indiana State, Sycamores, Drake, Bradley are all neck and neck. So it's going to be great. These early ones are always entertaining. The SoCon, the Chattanooga Mocs, 12-6, UNC Greensboro, Samford. By far, they were 18-0 at home.
And those are all teams. Those are all teams that are bracket busters come tournament time. The SoCon, those are teams that you can't sleep on them. And I think that's the beauty of the tournament, because there's so much talent spread in college basketball. Kids that just can't get into these big name schools. There's only so many positions, so they have to go to some smaller, less known conferences, but they're just as good. They're just as good as these Power 5 conferences, and the results come in the tournament. This is what these kids live for, and they get everything they got, and that's why the tournament is so fun to watch. Outside of the betting aspect too.
Never underestimate the power of coaching, and the SEC went out and got Nate Oates at Alabama. They got Musselman at Arkansas, guys that weren't in the league. Bruce Pearl, Rick Barnes, Calipari. I've heard he's pretty good. But that changed basketball in the SEC. It changed recruiting in the transfer portal. My point being, the SoCon is a stepping stone. Will Wade, although he's dirty, was at Chattanooga, but there's a host of other dudes. And if you got good coaching, you can beat anyone. Moving on, I know Shane would probably, if he hadn't puked yet, would puke over this topic because he's not as much of a fan. But a polarizing figure who admittedly I didn't love as much until he came to my team, The all-time leading scorer in the NBA just hit 40,000 points, and that's LeBron James. Is LeBron James at 39 and what he's doing, is he the greatest athlete ever of the major four sports? And I know you're going to Bobby Orr and other guys in hockey, but hockey guys play a long-ass time often.
Yeah.
Chelios, others, but is he the greatest athlete ever? And for me, I think longevity, because you can frame this in any way context you believe.
Yeah, he's up there. I don't know if I would say he's the greatest athlete. What he's doing, what he continues to do at his age is remarkable. But like, I wrote some names down, and I went, sport by sport.
Hell yeah, let's hear him.
Longevity wise, he didn't have it, but he transcended the game. And Walter Payton,
sweetness was
what he was able to do, flying over the top, his speed, his ability to change directions. That wasn't part of the NFL back then. It was a ground and pound kind of a game. Walter Payton changed it. I remember I always wanted his shoes when I was a kid, the kangaroos with the zippers. That was like a dream of mine, never happened because,
those were badass.
Yeah. But anyways, here's another player who you mentioned earlier, Bo Jackson. I don't think there was an athlete-wise, I think Bo Jackson probably was the greatest athlete of all time. His skill level, both football and baseball, athleticism, unquestionable. I think it's Bo Jackson.
In a time where that didn't happen. And
no.
Like Aleem McNeil, for those that don't know, in Detroit is 315 pounds. He's lost weight, but he was a hell of a baseball player. He played
in the perfect game. Travel league. It was like AAU baseball. It's superior. Perfect game superior.
It's the best.
And he could have gone pro. But anyways, the Michael Jordans, Kobe, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, those guys.
Getting into a topic, in my opinion, where we talk about this is kind of like also the best players ever.
True.
And I have to admit,
true.
I was thinking about LeBron James at 40 with 25, 26 years on his legs with the playoffs, who are full seasons. That at age 39 and 40, I've never seen dominate a sport still. And that's what I was thinking, that physically. And then my boy Norris said, well, a lot of flights to Germany, Kobe did that as well. Those types of plasma, whatever injections that happen over there. But LeBron James to me is just the most dominant. Jordan fell off, got fat. Kobe kind of broke down, but he had 60 in his last game, which is amazing. What about longevity?
Well, longevity, yeah. And here's the thing. So my dad, we all know, is a Buckeye fan. So I remember he gets the Buckeye Sports Bulletin every month. And I remember LeBron was in middle school, and they were writing about him in the Buckeye Sports Bulletin. Coming up through high school, he was so hyped. And this is before social media was as big as it is. The hype train behind LeBron James was like nothing we've ever seen. He comes into the league, and he backed up everything. From day one, I was at his first professional game. He played the Pistons in a preseason game. I was there. And he dominated.
Seriously?
Yes.
You were there?
He dominated. And you know what? He backed up everything that everyone was saying about him. Now, I haven't always been the biggest LeBron James fan, because I'm of the adage where he could never do it on his own like Michael. I don't think he was going to get it done in Cleveland unless he had a supporting cast. I think that's why he went to Miami. I always disrespected him in that regard for leaving Cleveland, going to Miami, then going back to Cleveland, then going to LA. I think it would have been a better story if he would have stayed in Cleveland. But maybe that's the bias in me with my dad being a Cleveland fan and whatnot. But he did bring him a championship the first time since the 50s, so I was happy as hell for him then. But that's the one thing about him, and you're looking at he's 40 years old, and I'll run the clip and we can continue to talk over the clip because there's no audio. But look at this, he's 40 years old and he's driving the lane, and without hesitation. And there's a play coming up in this clip where he just he took the guy one-on-one and he drove him to the lane, and here's where LeBron James started to change a little bit. And you can go back to Michael Jordan. When did Michael Jordan take that next step? Is when he developed that fadeaway jumper, when he wasn't relying upon going to the lane, and the Pistons beat him up. That play right there, there's no fear. But
high pick and roll, dude. Against Phoenix, he had a couple steals. He beats everyone down the court and throws it down like back to back, and I was just like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, right here, like he's thinking. I'm thinking about three. I could pull up right now, but I'm going to take you to school, young fella. Boom, left, right, drives the lane. He's 40 years old. I mean, you saw this. I mean, I watched him do this in the fourth quarter of the 2008 Eastern Conference Finals when he scored 25 points in the fourth quarter by himself. I mean, and he's still playing at that level, albeit I think he gets the benefit of some ticky-tack fouls, but nonetheless, he still has
doesn't in the NBA.
He still has insane ability to play, and I don't think he's going away at least for the next couple years. But I mean, longevity-wise, yeah, absolutely. His ability to where 20 years ago to where he's at now, I mean, there hasn't been a whole lot of drop off because he's gonna be top 5 in every offensive category, and there aren't many players that have been able to do that. But best athlete ever, I'm going Bo Jackson, but
yeah, just strictly athletic.
Yeah.
And if he didn't have that hip injury in the playoffs against, by the way, the Raiders the next week went into Buffalo for the AFC Championship game and lost 51-3.
And we've talked about this before. That injury today, he misses 4 weeks, 5 weeks, maybe. He's back. I mean, at least he's back the next season, which shows you how far, this game has gone medically with injuries. It really is remarkable. So, man, that was a huge blow.
It was amazing, and I'd be remiss. Randall Cunningham may have been alive at the time. This guy played 26 years, ending up with the Raiders, quarterback and kicker, and that's George Blanda.
Oh, yeah.
Blanda was a rookie with the Bears in 1949. He retired in 75. He didn't play a ton of quarterback, like maybe 8-10 years, which is not a lot when you play 26 years or whatever, 35 years. Sorry, I know, 26. But he was also a kicker. So that's pretty crazy to play in the NFL that long.
Sure.
So, yeah, with LeBron personally, I thought he was just a brute. He did help Cleveland on his own for a long time, take him all the way to the conference finals a number of times. Now, the East sucked, back then. But for me,
not in 2004.
No, fuck off. For me, though,
going to work, baby.
Yeah, that was the wrong super team to build, guys that are AARP members. But he became a different player and this is what the greats do, when they make others better around them. And LeBron has done that. This year he leads the Lakers with 8 assists per game. He'd rather other people score and make those kids better. He's a hell of a leader, a wonderful dad. And, people were like, oh, he did a show just to go to Miami. No, that show was 100% to benefit the Boys and Girls Club, and it raised $2 million when he did that. Taking my talents to South Beach. But he's not that guy anymore. His game has evolved. And you said it also. He literally evolved his game in basketball parallel to the path of social media. And and he already had attention, but 2003, he's had a spotlight on him globally, and you don't hear anything about him.
His high school games were televised on ESPN. I mean, when he was a sophomore. So that didn't happen in that era. And it just goes to show you he's met the match since a young age.
Absolutely agree. We were going to do, switching gears here, we were going to do some serious golf talk with Chain. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about Anthony Kim, and we'll get back to this. And but we are going to hit Eckroat's first PGA win, but also we're going to get back to the match about women and men playing together in golf. And after Steph Curry versus Sabrina Ionescu, there's it's a layered conversation, and I just wanted to throw that out there for next time. But you and I both wanted to talk about what I have never been to, and I have so many friends that have been for the West Coast, and I wanted to go, and that's the Phoenix Open, the Waste Management Now Open in the 16th. Can you give us some background about what finally actually happened?
Well, if you don't know, or if you've been living under a rock, the Waste Management Phoenix Open takes place the week of Super Bowl. So that, in a sense, makes it a very, popular tournament. Last year being the Super Bowl was in Glendale.
So I'm going to say that.
You had the spotlight on it. And what it is I believe it's the 16th hole. They built basically a stadium around it. So it's a par 3, and so you're surrounded by fans, and you're encouraged. The fans are encouraged to be rowdy. And when there's a hole in one, there's some beverages being thrown, we'll say.
Gilmore style.
Players have been known to take their shirts off and run around the course, which is very anti golf establishment. We don't do that in the PGA. But so every year it's gotten bigger and bigger. Well, this year it culminated in chaos. Basically, the Saturday's round, they cut off alcohol sales. I think it was 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because people were literally passing out, sliding down the hill. There was a lot of rain leading up to that tournament, and it was pretty chilly from what I understand. So there was a lot of people there that were overserved, obnoxious. So they pretty much cut the alcohol sales, which caused a big commotion in the crowd. And then Saturday, or the next day, Sunday, the championship round, they just stopped checking tickets. So they estimated over 100,000 people were on the course, and there was only supposed to be upwards of 50 to 60. So a lot of people were refused entrance that had tickets. So it was chaos. It was just complete chaos. They lost control of the situation. And, the question being, do they need to change how they operate that Waste Management Open? And see, here's where I think the PGA is in a bit of a conundrum. The Live Tour, that's the Live Tour, week in and week out. There's crowd participation, and aside from the financial backing and where it comes from, that I don't think you and I either or Robbie agree with it, where it comes from, but nonetheless, their model, I think, is good marketing for the sport, because let's face it, golf is, if you're not named Brandon Chain, golf is kind of a ho-hum boring sport. I enjoy it. I'm not good at it. I always say, well, people say, are you good at golf? And I say, well, I'm good at drinking beer, because that's about all I do when I play golf. But I think they have the model that's bringing the younger generation, the younger fan, into play. you know what? They're the crazy designs as far as merchandise. They're marketing the golfer a little bit more. They're encouraging participation. They're encouraging you to get involved. That we're on the green, and I think that's where the PGA needs to realize that they can't mess with the mold of the Waste Management Open because they're going to lose. I mean, I think they're already neck and neck with Liv, and Liv has kind of got some motivation moving in. So I think the PGA needs to find a way to emulate what Liv is doing, but not 100%. But I think they need to get a little bit more crowd participation and market the game to the 18 to 34-year-olds, not the 55 to 75-year-olds, which, the PGA normally markets too. So I think they've got decisions to make. Yes, you have to cap it. You cannot have another situation like you had 2 months ago in Arizona. But you can't lose that either, and because I think it's a huge draw. People line up at like 2 a.m, and when they open the gates, they rush to that 16th hole. It's excitement, and it's on my bucket list, no question. So I hope it does continue to go because I want to be a part of it one day soon.
This is an area in Scottsdale and whatnot and it's golf that has a ton of money circulating in regional economy. I could not believe there was just absolutely, we talked about storming the court, just chaos, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Most people were tailgating 8 hours plus beforehand, and they're running, full fights breaking out. Just, it's like I worked at Nordstrom's back in the day, the department store, and they had the sale half yearly at like 3 a.m. and there'd be primarily women running to shit, and
they got to get those bras.
Safe. And these are guys running full speed, hammered, running into each other, fights breaking out. Dude ended up in a bunker, jumping onto the course. People throwing shit because they decided to cut off sales, which I actually support that because there's nothing worse than getting hammered during the day and then just coming down. And I think it should be a seniors tour event. It would kind of calm it down. John, and plus seniors had more personality, Sevi Ballesteros, and of course the great John Daly, who was not invited in 2011, said he's never going to play that again, which sucks. That's a crime. And that Aussie dude that would always go on Jim Rome, who's hilarious. But yeah, the lack of security baffled me. I could not believe it. I mean, and I always think that shit's gonna fall down, dude. Like, it's a 20,000 seat structure, and
it's gotten bigger and bigger every year. It's now encompassed the entire hole, which I think there was just one side, a couple of years ago, but now it's gotten way too huge
for 3 to 4 days a year. Otherwise, it just sits there,
They started with the Pro-Am on Wednesday, so you get all walks of celebrity, other sports that come into play, which that's the day to go to, the Wednesday.
Yeah, I agree. But it's obvious changes need to be made. The lack of security and regulation and unlimited alcohol, which again, we are not necessarily opposed. But I'm not bringing my kid but even my wife or anybody else. It's just not safe, man. It's wasted dudes running into each other, and big ass dudes full speed, and that shit is not safe. And I believe it's a GA. I think they have tickets, but nobody cares. But it's just a shit show. That being said, is the 16th at the Waste Management Open just a spectacle? Does it count? I mean, there's been 15 hole-in-ones where people are like, it's one of the easiest ones there. Or is it good for golf?
I think in today's day and age, TikTok went crazy. I understand your company doesn't let you have TikTok, but that's the name of the game, TikTok. It went bonkers. It was nonstop for a week about the waste management. So I think it's great for golf as long as you find a way to kind of put a cap on it. I mean, let them have fun. Let them do some crazy things that you don't normally see on a golf course in a PGA event, but don't take it away. Don't completely remove it, because I think that's when PGA is going to shoot themselves in the foot and LIV will kind of bypass it. So you have to find a way to curtail it. I don't know how they do it, if they have some sort of a tracking system on you can't have X amount of drinks. But then, that comes into a whole different, political aspect. But yes, I think it's great for golf, just because look at what the people that were there. They were all like frat boys. They were all, 20 something.
That's what it's become, dude.
And what are they going to do? They're going to go buy a set of golf clubs and they're going to get on the greens. And I think golf courses around the country benefit from it, just from the exposure that they see. And here's another thing. Golfers are kind of like, they put their blinders on. They don't react to the crowd and whatnot. You see these golfers turn around, high-fiving the fans. You see a side of them that most, tournaments you just don't get. And I think that's good for the sport. And if you don't like it, then you know what? You don't like change. And I think you have to evolve as the game goes. You have to evolve with it. And if it means you throw a little alcohol and some people throwing some drinks after a hole-in-one and people cheering, and if that helps spread the game, I think it's a good thing. And the PGA has to find a way to make sure it keeps rolling.
I'm with you, dude. I got to say, for all our Tennessee Volunteer fans, like I said, I like the basketball team. Most purists do. Plus, you got White Mamba in Dalton Connect, who if they're underdogs, bet on those dudes. You will make money. I bet on them regular season champs. I said that. If they were dogs at Alabama, I bet on them, and money line. I took them real live line at half. I was just taking Tennessee left and right. And
is that a segue? Is that a segue?
It could be, but that game was tonight. I don't know the odds for the next time they play, which I believe is the last regular season game of the year. But they went into a ranked South Carolina tonight. Oh, shit, they get Kentucky at home. That'll be interesting, a team that shows up kind of when you least expect it. But the Vols deserve a 1 seed. We hope they don't screw them over, put them out west, and put Arizona as a 2 out there. But there is no doubt this is a 1 seed team. And my biggest fear for them would be post-depth. Awaka's been playing well, but Adu, if he gets in trouble, you can turn them into a one-dimensional team. But senior leadership, defense, dudes from Brooklyn, that is the team right there. And again, they go into South Carolina tonight and win 66-59 against a team that was 14-2 at home. So, and Wamba had 26. He shot a lot, but 5 for 11 from threes. Only 3 free throw attempts, which is, he doesn't really get to the rack as much, but he's a guy that can create his own shot from all over. Just a pure basketball player. So we are going into our last segment, which I know, 80-20 rule. I think I've been talking 80% to 20, but that's why we need Rob here, the attorneys that are full of shit. Well, one real attorney, one no longer. But anyways, let's get into bet your sack. Well, you're nuts, but I like sack too.
It's time for Bet Your Nuts. You bet your sack. That's high. You better have some good insider information if you're going to bet your sack. I'm going to leave it at that.
My sack of nuts. This is going to be a tough one because straight up, there are some lines that are like baffling me in college basketball in the tournament. Anything could happen. For me, the one I love, and there may be an injury that I don't know about, but it is USA. You gotta love USA, and you know what I'm talking about with USA, and that is the University of South Alabama.
Oh, jeez.
They are only two and
They're
a half.
the Jaguars? Is that their moniker?
I believe so, yes, because they should have beat UCLA last year. I watched that game, and they lost on a field goal at the buzzer, or at the buzzer. Like on basketball mode. But they are playing a 8-23 Georgia State team, and they're 2.5-point favorites. So Vegas knows all, so this could be a trap game. But yeah, they're both 8 and 10 in the Sun Belt. So that's kind of scary. But I'm gonna go with Georgia Southern, USA minus 2.5. But yeah, I just see their conference record; they're the same, so that's kind of scary. Over-unders are the way to go, and admittedly, I did not check as much as I should have, but I'm looking at others. In the meantime, what about yourself?
Well, I've got a couple, and I'm going to start with the NBA, and I don't normally go this route, but you talk about lines that are kind of baffling. Tomorrow night, Boston going into Denver. The Nuggets are a 1-point dog in this game. I like Denver here. Bet on them. The spread and the money line. They're minus 110 for +1, and the money line is minus 105. I think that's a no-brainer. That game will be prime time, probably on TNT. So all eyes on that. So I like Denver. Obviously, they won the NBA championship last year. So give me the Nuggets there, and you know what? I've ventured into the world of NASCAR, and I'm going to stick to it. This guy, he's had a really good start. He was crashed out last week. He didn't crash out. He crashed out week one, finished third in that crazy finish in Atlanta. And then this past race, he was probably a top 2 or 3 driver, but had a pit penalty, which these pit penalties are ridiculous. Kyle Busch, he could have won that race last week in Vegas. He had the car to do it. He was fast. But I like him. He's plus 1,000 to win in Phoenix. He's got 3 career wins at Phoenix. And I just think he's kind of primed. He's aggressive. He's had a fast car to start this season. So I really think he's primed to make a run here. And don't sleep on Tyler Reddick, who finished second last week. Just didn't have enough to get past Larson, who just he had an unbelievable race car last week. He won the first 2 stages and came home with the checkered flag. What a race for him. So, but Kyle Busch, I like him. I think he makes his move this week in Phoenix. They're talking about Arizona quite a bit tonight.
We are, which is a state that does not suck if you're a single male, from what I've heard. By the way, I remember being at a club there back in the day, and Donovan McNabb was there, and I believe it was the off season, but he was a popular guy, one guy at the round table, and he was surrounded. So anyways, I love that bet. What is Vegas up to? Your Nuggets and Celtics bet. The Celtics are 29-3 at home, but 19-10 on the road. Denver is the world champs, and they are 24-6 at home. Didn't Boston lose to the Detroit Pistons, or am I taking crazy pills?
You're taking crazy pills. They just beat Golden State. They just beat Golden State 140-88 the other night. So
and they beat somebody else that was good. And I was tripping on that one. Maybe you can help me out if you remember. The Pistons did. But, yeah, the worst loss I can think of for the Celtics was earlier in the year. They lost in double OT to the Charlotte Hornets, which that should count for two losses. But yeah, a home dog for the world champs.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was surprised on that one. I'm sure it'll change. I'm sure it'll be a push come tip off, but to see that the day before the game, I was a bit surprised.
Big time, dude. Let's get into you and I and final thoughts.
Or final words. It doesn't matter.
The same. I'm going to go first because you always have something great and weighty to say, and I don't. Again, to me, the NFL Combine and the measurables and the guys that had 4 years on the field to prove something, then they come in and do something astronomical during that week, and then the pundits get behind them and the hype train starts and guess who's shooting up the boards, and it makes me fucking freaking sick. It's like getting all D pluses throughout your years in high school, taking the SAT and getting a 1480 or 1500. You're still not going to get into Harvard, even with that. And these guys should not be getting into wherever the hell they get in or get drafted. The biggest combine busts at the measurables, Jamarcus, again, threw 50 from his knees, and suddenly he's drafted first. Darius Hayward-Bay and another receiver, John Ross, who ran like a sub 4.3 from Washington, I believe. I can't remember. He went to Cincinnati out of football. I think I mentioned Tony Mandarich, who in 1989 was a second overall pick, and
from Michigan State,
freak from Michigan State, ended up
steroids,
being crazy roided out, and was just an awful pick. Bosworth as well. His career ended when Bo Jackson ran his ass over at the goal line in Seattle.
Oh man!
In the Kingdome. That was the one where Bo went Forrest Gump.
Greatest athlete.
Oh, dude, he went Forrest Gump that game and scored on like an 80-yard TD. He couldn't slow down.
Went down the tunnel.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Others, if you remember, Mike Mamula. The Raiders, another one. Fabian Washington, a DB out of Houston or whatnot. Matt Jones from Arkansas. Vernon Golston, Ohio State. And finally, a guy who's handsome and made it to ESPN at University of Georgia, SEC Defensive Player of the Year in 2005, David Pollock. He had a pretty awful career. And
now his career is awful now that he's out of ESPN. He's really gotten awful.
Yeah, man. He was like watching paint dry. Finally, I was trying to think of dudes that actually panned out. The one that came to mind was Byron Jones, who had set records in the triple jump or the broad jump. I know there's a lot of others, but the point being is take on-field success over any of this crap. Now, one caveat is I heard coaches with USC when they were dominant, Alabama and Georgia, that some of these guys with their coaching have been coached up so much that they don't have a high ceiling. So that's my one caveat with 4 years of being dominant, that you got to see guys that still have a lot of room to grow. And, for every Alex Leatherwood, there's a Will Anderson. And so they exist. But, stay away from combine freaks, and you know who they are. So screw the measurables, and that is all I have for my final words. Your turn. Let's hear it. Always do a great job here.
I'll follow up really quick to the intangibles. I know it's not the Wonderlic. What is the name of the new test that they give?
Oh shit! We talked about it before.
Yeah, the name escapes me, but there was a quarterback last year that failed miserably, got the worst score in the history of the combine. And there were teams that looked at that and were really going to judge whether or not they were going to pick him. And fortunately for Houston, they looked at the on-field play of C.J. Stroud, and how good do they look? I mean, he was incredible. Just what a rookie season that he had. And you know what? He's got football IQ. I think that's what matters most. And but nonetheless, same situation.
It's the S2 eval.
There it is. There it is. Yeah.
It's like a robot.
Same situation here. You know, the combine, I agree with you. I think they spend a little bit too much time on, oh, he ran a 4.4. Oh, he ran a 4.8. We can't. I'm show me what he's done on the field. But that all culminates to the draft. And this year, the draft is in Detroit, and we're all excited for it. And I'm excited because there's a lot of people that are really going to see what Detroit's made of. Detroit has a bad name around the country. A lot of people think of it as still a war zone, when the reality is Detroit's been revitalized. There's so much going on downtown. You can go downtown when there isn't games, and actually the wife and I go downtown quite often. There's so many great bars. There's so many great restaurants and just pieces of history that are downtown that are so good to see. And buildings like the old train station that now will be Ford headquarters. They've completely revitalized that. That used to be ruin porn, they called it. So photographers would come to Detroit and take pictures of it in the surrounding areas just because of the dilapidation and what life and these old buildings. You know, Detroit used to be the life force of the country, and all these old buildings died, and these photographers would come in and take pictures of that. Those old buildings have all been revitalized, and it's so cool to see. Detroit's on the come up, and I think the world is going to see that with the draft. The city did such a good job in 2005 with the Super Bowl. They did a lot of things to really paint the city in a good light, and they're doing that today. There's a lot of empty storefronts that they're bringing vendors in, that they're filling those storefronts, and I think there's going to be a lot of people that leave the draft that came from out of town that are going to say, man, I want to come back to Detroit because there's so many cool things to do. It's one of the only cities in professional sports that have all four teams. It's one of the only cities that have all four sports teams, but to have all four sports teams all play within like a half a mile of each other. Pistons, Tigers, Red Wings, and the Lions, they play like all together. So that surrounding area is great. So I'm excited to head down there for the draft, and I know it's going to be a success. And I think the people that haven't visited Detroit or thought to come to Detroit that are going to come to Detroit are going to be pleasantly surprised. So I'm excited for next month for the draft, and good things to come in the city between the draft and, the building blocks that the Lions have. Super Bowl is definitely on a lot of people's minds, and why not? So Detroit's on their way up, and I think people are going to be excited to see it. So I'm excited.
Two things I'm going to just close out on that. Number one, pop culture has never done Detroit any favors. It was kind of like a war zone setting, South Central LA type. 8 Mile was a very dark, a great director, but it was supposed to be representative of life there, and I guess it kind of was, but
it was.
It's in 2003. It was very different. We talked about how Detroit was just deserted. Four brothers, and the one I think of was almost 40 years ago is RoboCop, and at the time I was just like, I don't want to go there. So Detroit has had an absolute renaissance, a complete reinvestment in the city, and when it's becoming a place where people want to go and hipsters take over. And those MFers are everywhere, bro, and you got to trust hipsters when it comes to location. Just ask people that live in Brooklyn. And the final thought I was going to say on the Wonder Look and these evaluations, the S2 eval is considered a state-of-the-art system derived from cognitive science literature, no references or bibliography, decades of research, and precision measurement devices that track responses down to the millisecond. What they mean by that is like the fucking buzzer in Jeopardy. It is a specially designed gaming laptop and response pad that can record reactions in 2 milliseconds. So yeah, that's supposed to determine split-second decisions. When you have Tank Dell and others running down the sideline at 4-2, I would literally call that a split-second decision. So CJ Stroud basically told all of them, and if he didn't on purpose, it was fucking brilliant, but told all of them that these standardized tests are useless.
Yep.
And get rid of them. By the way, a great leader, an amazing college quarterback in Hendon Hooker, former Tennessee Vol, scored 46% on that test. Hendon Hooker, yeah, I said, go ahead, sorry.
Bryce Young scored very high. And
98%.
Look where it got him. Yeah.
84%. Jake Hayner, Fresno State, 93%. Anthony Richardson, 79%. So an 18 basically should tell you to ditch this bullshit. Look at the reaction time on the field. And with that note, for Brandon Chain's liver, esophagus, and Blanton's that was wasted down the sewer system in Brentwood, Tennessee, for Tom Sloan, for Robbie Davis, who was absent and would have teed off today. No pun intended. I am Raj Mehta. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.
Go like and follow, subscribe to all our socials here. And once again, everyone that showed up tonight, we really appreciate it. We had a great showing. We appreciate you taking time out of your Wednesday night. I mean, we're almost 11. Actually, we're 11:11. Hey, good luck here. And we've still got a good showing, and we really appreciate that. So go hit that like button, give us a follow, and look for a show next week. And we'll see you guys then.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Reckless Speculation. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube, searching Reckless Speculation. Catch us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We look forward to catching you right here next week with another exciting episode of Reckless Speculation.